All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Leadership Connection webinar series. Today, we're addressing a wonderful topic, a topic that I'm so passionate about, and I'm sure we're going to enjoy. It's going to be the role of coaching in leadership development. And we have a special speaker and master certified coach, and we're going to explain what does that specifically mean. It's Lissa Qualls. I'm Dr. Jesus San Pedro. I'm the program director and assistant professor for the Master of Arts in Leadership program here at Mid-America Christian University. And I'm really honored to be today your host together with Dr. Kelly Resamy. I'm honored to be part of what's going on and what's happening here at this university. I'm here at our campus in Oklahoma City. And I'm honestly, I have a passion to connect the dots between relevant content, highly capable and experienced thinkers and practitioners from all the scopes of leadership and business, and also a diverse base of learners from around the world, from around the nation, and even locally, and even part of our university ecosystem. And specifically and especially for those who want to leverage what they do in their career and their God-given leadership. And we're excited to be here today. And as I said, I am on behalf of the School of Business Leadership here at Mid-America Christian University, together acting as co-host and also joined by Dr. Kelly Resamy, who is the program director. And welcome, Kelly, and glad to share again with you today.
Well, thank you. And I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you, Dr. San Pedro, for opening up this space for us to have this conversation with local and international leaders. And we have a world-class leader here with us today to talk to. So I'm excited about that. And, our heart is to connect and engage a transformative conversation. So we're hoping that people will add in questions and talk. This is an interactive space. And as Dr. San Pedro said, that we are hoping that there is a wide community, both our graduate, undergraduate, alumni, leaders from around the world in the community, to join us in this conversation, because our heart, as he said, is to see everyone grow. We want to equip everyone that attends on the latest and greatest relevant topics. And that's what makes MACU leadership model so great, is that we want to reach out. So we're hoping that through this webinar series that we're bringing the world to MACU and taking MACU to the world. And I just want to thank all the people from the community and from anywhere where you're viewing in for joining us today. We have been excited that people from many locations, even internationally, are joining us. And that's one reason why we like the online format, because it allows us to have this expanded reach. And so remember, mark on your calendar that the third Thursday of every month at noon, so you can grab your lunch and join us for this interactive and dynamic conversation. And if you stay toward the end, we will see if we can send a little gift to someone who's eligible. So we're excited for this time to get to learn more from Lissa Qualls.
Yes. And Kelly, one of the things that we're really passionate, and part of the reason why we are doing this is because our mission here at Mid-America Christian University is related to creating, collaborating, and innovating to solve local and global problems for the glory of God through Jesus Christ and the good of society. And when we see this topic that we're going to address today, coaching and how to help leaders develop their capacities and organizations, it makes me think on how important it is so we're helping leaders to create, we're helping leaders to collaborate, and we're kind of like enabling leaders to innovate as they go and pursue their God-given calling. And so I have been a passionate learner and coach and trainer for almost 16 years. So this topic is really dear to my heart, and I've experienced the power of it. But I'm really excited to hear today from someone who has been there. And I'll introduce Lisa in a bit, but I just want to say that we have the opportunity to help leaders think and act more coherently, and basically help them handle reality and execute in the best possible way. And one of the key things is that coaches catalyze many things, and they can catalyze learning, reflection, action, exploration of options, and commitment. So there's so many benefits that I'm sure we're going to draw from today's talk. So without any further comment, I just want to introduce today's special guest, and the topic we're going to address today, as I said, the role of coaching in leadership development. And our speaker today is Lissa Qualls. We're honored to have you here, Lissa. Lissa offers decades of multicultural, cross-functional, and executive leadership from around the world. Her clients have been part of different boards of directors and directors from more than 18 countries all around the world. And she serves as a coach host for the Business and Executive Coach Summit, which, by the way, is one of the most exciting global events on coaching, and it has some free portions and some paid portions, and I highly recommend people to explore that. And it's the world's largest gathering online for business and those who are in the executive coaching world. And Lissa has served 6 years with the International Coach Federation, ICF, as the president-elect, president and sitting past president of the Arkansas, Oklahoma chapter. So we have her here locally in Oklahoma City, and we're honored to have her here. And I'm sure you were an inspiring voice there for the chapter of ICF, and she's a representative of the International Coach Federation at the Southern region NALAC regional office. So she holds a designation as a Master Certified Coach, MCC, with the ICF. There's a lot of people that don't really know what this means, but what this means is that Lissa is a Jedi of coaching. She's going through, we were just speaking about this, and it's 2,500 hours of coaching, certified, improved coaching to executives, and more than 300 hours of specific coach training. Anyway, we have a blessing today to have her here, and welcome, Lissa, and we're really glad and honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to our time. And I want to reiterate again, if you guys have questions or comments, drop them in the chat box, because I would love to answer those. I know when I'm sitting on webinars, questions will come up, and I want to get those addressed as possible. So a little bit about coaching. My first coach training was an organization called CoachNet Global, and it was in Australia. Actually, we went to Thailand for it, but the group is out of Australia. So I was with Youth for Christ International, part of the international training team, and there were 20 of us selected globally to go there for our classroom, to come back, do practicum, and go back for more classroom. So I've been coaching, oh my goodness, since like 2005, I think. Time confuses me, but it's been a while. When I first started coaching, the thing that I found out here in the US is people really didn't have an understanding of what coaching was. So often they thought that they would ask me, what sport are you coaching? Or they would ask, what did the person do to get in trouble? So it's helping people to realize that that's not at all what coaching is about. Coaching really is here to help the person figure out what it is that's holding them back. So I tell people when we start talking about a coaching agreement that if I were a therapist or a counselor, we would spend the majority of our time looking backwards to figure out what brought you to this place. If I were a consultant or a mentor, I would be sitting in the seat that you want, and I would tell you, if you do these 10 things, then you can have my position. But as a coach, I come alongside as a thought partner. And together we figure out where you're facing, what the voices are, what the situations are, what it is that's keeping you from moving forward. So we talked about the fact that the majority of people that I coach are at that high manager, directors, vice presidents, presidents, executives, et cetera. And at that level, for the most part, they know what it is that they need to be doing, but we just have to figure out what it is that's keeping them from doing that. So one of the things that we heard earlier was that coaching really is about sitting across from somebody, and it's about being present with them. So in a coaching situation, when I go in, I don't go in with an agenda. I go in and I ask the person across from me what it is that they're bringing with them today. What are their concerns? What are the issues? And then by being present with them, then I listen to what they're saying. I look for those movements that they might be making in their body. Did their breathing change, et cetera, and really help them to discover what's going on. So when we look at companies, one of the things that I've noticed since pandemic was that before that, the companies had monies that they were spending on development, but a lot of them, it wasn't necessarily on individual. It was a group workshop or a training or something like that. But as pandemic hit, everything changed. We know that. I mean, the world stopped there in a heartbeat, and we're trying to figure out our way back from that. So we had all these companies that have all these facilities all over the place that nobody was coming to. People started working remotely. So with that remote, there were new challenges that came with. One, if you're working from your home and you have small people, how do you handle that? Or maybe you're an extrovert and now you're working from home all by yourself. We've seen the studies and we know the issues that it's affected people with their mental health by when we had to have lockdown and how things have changed. So now it's hard to believe, but next month will be 3 years since we had the lockdown. I just can't believe that, but that was 2020 and here we are in 2023. But it's looking at now how things are changing back around. So we went from everybody showing up at the office to everybody going remote. And now we find ourselves in a place that companies are trying to figure out what does the new reality look like. There are some companies that have required their people to come back in person full time. What I'm seeing more often is that companies are giving you some flexibility and they're saying, we want you in the office 3 days a week, or we want you in 2 days, or whatever it is your company is requiring. Another interesting thing is that during all the COVID and people leaving, companies have grown in size. So for some of them, the office space that they had before isn't even big enough to accommodate the people that they have now. So they're trying to figure out what that looks like. But with that, now in university, you're kind of used to that kind of hybrid thing. You go to school a couple days, you don't, et cetera. But for work, that can be a challenge. If people haven't completely set up what days they're going in and where they're going to go when they go there, then it's easy to let that go. So one of the changes that we're seeing is that. What is the new reality as far as how often do we go in? Like I said, some places are saying we're not doing remote at all. You just have to figure out how to get here. So that has some interesting pieces. But another thing that has changed is because now that we had those years that nothing was going on in training, a lot of companies are sitting with monies that they can use when it comes to developing their people. We're seeing places being much more open to actually investing in coaching for their staff. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times we think that if I have a coach, I've done something wrong. I have a company here in town I'm working for, and we discussed the other day that they're mandating for one particular group of people to come for one-on-one coaching. And we had to explain that maybe mandating wasn't the right word because it looks like that it's something that we're doing it because you're in trouble or you weren't doing something well. But it's helping people to understand that by having a coach, it really gives you that ability to truly move up the ladder. Another thing that we're seeing, and I'm sure that you are as well, is that we have a lot of people in leadership in companies that had absolutely no training on how to be a leader. Now, I know a lot of what you guys are doing is leadership training, and that's beautiful. Because the biggest switch that I see in people is when you go from being an IC, that individual contributor, and you step into that role of being that first level manager. It's such a change on how we look at things. So when I have clients at that level, then we really help them to understand that part of their job in that leadership role is to delegate to their people. It's to help their people learn to grow so they'll have the skills necessary to move up. But that's one of the big things is that companies are much more open right now to actually hire coaches to come in and work with their teams. So I also find that most companies will require that you at least have your professional coaching certification from the International Coaching Federation. And we heard a little bit from Dr. San Pedro earlier, but the ICF has 3 different levels. The first level is the associate coach, and that means that you've done 60 hours of coach-specific training and you've coached for 100 hours. Now, to be accepted at that level, you have to send in recordings, you have to take a knowledge assessment exam, and a few other things to receive that level. For the next one, as a professional coach, you have to have 125 hours of coach-specific training and coach 750 hours. So it takes a little bit more to get there, but most companies are looking for coaches who are at that level. When I'm visiting with people to see if we're a good fit for me to coach them, the one thing I always tell them is if we're not a good fit, I really want you to go out there and I want you to ask questions. I want you to be informed. In Oklahoma and across the US, anybody can decide that they're a coach. I can just claim that, I can buy business cards, etc., without having any training. And I find this very interesting. When I go to my salon to get a mani-pedi, they've had training and they have a certificate up on the wall. But to be a coach, it doesn't require that. But in order to make sure that you have somebody who truly understands what it means to be ethical in this space, what it means to truly be with the person across from them, and not to be somebody who just gives advice, but who helps them discover what that truth is for them. So I always say ask. But if that's something you're looking at for coaching, is do consider that you want to make sure that you have some path forward to get some of those hours in so you can be in that space of PCC. I was called into a company the other day, and part of what I'm doing with coaching for them is to help them work on culture. We're seeing a lot of that change too, again, because of the pandemic. A lot of people left, a lot of people have come in, and when people come in from different places, they bring their culture with them. So in order to have a culture for a company, then we have to figure out, one, what does that company want? And then we need to help our leadership understand how to actually instill that culture in the company, in the teams, etc. So I believe that when a person comes in, if you are at a place that somebody comes in and does a workshop or a training, whatever, that the most important part is to have somebody on that backside where coaching comes in to help you actually embody. This is what you've learned. This is what you heard. Now, how do you make that your own? So that's important. Another thing that I'm seeing when I started working with tech companies over on the West Coast, I heard a new term that I had not heard before. This may be old to you, but it was new to me. And it was called teal. It was a teal company. So there is a chart out there that has all these different colors on what companies are. A red company is completely hierarchical. You might think of the military, completely top down. That's just the way it is. But a teal company is very much, it's flat, it's lateral. And the idea is that we are all equal, that we all bring things to the table, that we all contribute. I do believe we all bring things to the table. I do believe we all contribute. And that teal does work for a certain size company. But once the company starts growing, then we do have to have somebody who actually can say yes or no on something. We need to have people who can make decisions and make them happen. However, if you are in a teal company or if you have been in one, the skills that you learn in that space on how to lead through influence, how to get people to come along and who want to work with you, don't have to work with you. Those skills will help you all the way through your journey in the corporate world. So I think that that's important as well, as to understand what it means to have influence. And we're hearing that word a lot more. It's about influencing the people around you. It's about being able for them to see what you're seeing so you both can be facing that same direction. So those are a couple of the things that I'm seeing there. And I mentioned a little bit about how coaching truly can help. If I can sit with somebody and help them figure out, what is the voice that you're hearing in your head? And then once we hear that voice, now we can figure out how to come against that voice. We all have the voices talking to us. So it's figuring out what they're saying and then figuring out what truth is on the other side of that. For people who are in leadership, to have a coach across from them, it's a gift. Everybody sitting in this space today probably has been in a position where you've had to lead, where you've had to make decisions that maybe weren't the most popular. But there are ways that you can do it that mitigate some of the discomfort. There are ways that you can do it that your people still feel like they've been valued and heard. I was talking to a company the other day, and that was the first thing I mentioned. I said, your people at every level want to feel that they are valued and heard. There are lots of jobs out there in Oklahoma. I mean, as you drive down the road, there are signs everywhere that we are hiring. Companies are hiring everywhere. Small companies and big companies are hiring. So the issue is to be there with them and to help them figure out what is the right space. How do we bring people in that can lead our people? How do we help them to be good leaders? As I mentioned earlier, so often we see people who are put in positions because of what they were really good at, not necessarily what they're going to be good at the next level. But coaching can help in those difficult situations. One of my certifications is in conversational intelligence, and I'm very passionate about people having their voice. So I was with Youth for Christ International for over 20 years. And I like to share that most often I was the only woman in the space, the only American in the space, and often the only person with this complexion. So I had to learn early how to communicate so I could be heard. Because if they can't hear your voice, they can't hear your message, and you don't have any influence. So if we can learn how to communicate in such a way that we don't fire off the person's amygdala across from us, that we can keep them in that space of having conversation. Our goal is to eventually get up here to the prefrontal cortex and to really be in that space of co-creating. I'm not bringing my stuff and you're not bringing your stuff, but together we're creating something new that benefits everybody. It's no longer about me, but I serve us so we can serve others. And I think those are the messages that we're starting to hear a little bit in companies. I mentioned the part about wanting to be valued and heard. As I said, there are places that are hiring anywhere. So I could go down the road, and down the road might be 3 states over, but it's still in my office in my house. But I may make more money, but I want to know that I feel valued and heard. If I feel valued and heard here, I will stay here. If I feel that I have no voice, I will go somewhere else. And that was part of the challenge. Now, we all also have seen in the news that there are a lot of layoffs going on. But a lot of the layoffs started out with the tech industry, a lot of engineers. But then again, there are lots of other companies that are needing engineers, so they can move other places. But we're seeing some of the shifting where companies are starting to kind of to look at their numbers and how do they need to readjust on what they're doing. So with those adjustments, now you have reorganizations inside companies. And with those reorgs, how do we handle that? Coaching can help get the message to your team. It can help you give it in such a way that people aren't as fearful. And I did say as fearful. Anytime there's a reorg, we know that there's some fear that goes with it. But if we can help people give that message in such a way that it's encouraging, then that's beneficial. Those are the kind of things that coaching can help with. It helps people figure out the stories that they're telling themselves. A person across from them, as I'm sitting and asking questions, I can help you identify what really is the issue here. A couple of things that I tell people is if we're asking questions, when I do workshops, I'll mention this, that one of the words we shouldn't use is why. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I don't want you to, obviously you can't answer, but I want you just to see where it feels in your body. So what is it about your current role that brought you to it? What is it about your current role that brought you to it? Second question, why are you in your current role? Why are you in your current role? If you were aware, you kind of notice that with that second one, there was a little bit of bristle. Because when I ask you why, I'm asking you to justify your decision. So even to help people understand, when we want to get information from our teams, we want to be able to give information across, how we ask that question makes such a difference on how it lands. Also, I look at my little notes here. I think that too, if you're looking at positioning yourself as a coach inside a company, a few things that I would tell you. Number one, as I mentioned earlier, you do want to make sure that you are certified through the International Coaching Federation. They're over 27 years old, I believe, somewhere in there, in numerous countries globally. We would like to see the ICF at some point be that regulating body. We don't want states to come in and regulate what it looks like to be a coach. So we would like ICF, and we continue to work that way. ICF is also there if a coach finds himself in a situation. Texas a few years ago tried to pass some laws, and so the ICF stepped in and went to bat for the coaches in Texas. But it's important to have that certification because it is known globally. There's so many certifications out there. As I mentioned, I have tons of them. I can't keep track half the time of how many certifications I hold, but the one that matters is the one with the International Coaching Federation. When I share that with somebody, they can go online, they can see the training that I had to have, they can see the steps I had to go through, and it has to be, my certification has to be renewed every 3 years. And with that, I have that continuing education, like any other certification out there. So that would be one thing I would encourage you, check into, find out the different courses that are out there and start working in that direction. I mentioned that my first training was in Thailand with a group out of Australia. It was a faith-based group. And so I love that foundation. I'm a person of faith myself. But when I went to use it for the ICF, I couldn't just take it straight over. So I had to do what they call a portfolio, which meant a lot more paperwork and a lot more work to do. So my encouragement, if you're looking at this to be a place to go into companies, then go ahead and find something that's listed through the ICF, that's been accredited by them. So that would be the piece on that. And then also, I think when you want to go into companies, it's very important to have an idea of who you're going to contact in that company. I mentioned earlier, if I were a mentor or a consultant, I would know a lot about the industry. And before we came on here, I was asked, who am I coaching right now? And I started going through. Currently, I have people who are in the tech industry. I have people in the pharmaceutical industry. I have some doctors. I have some accountants. I have oil and gas. I have nonprofit, just a variety of all sorts of different companies and different organizations, and globally as well. I don't have to know how to do the job they're doing. I have to know how to sit with them and how to ask good questions for them to discover. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't bring my expertise to the table with me. Those certifications are not for nothing. So I'll spend time helping them understand how to have a conversation, how to handle those difficult times. How do you get past that? But very much, if you're looking to be a part of that, this is the time to start talking to companies and find out what opportunities they may have for you to come in and to coach their people. When you first start out, everybody will say, well, you have to declare, you have to know what your niche is. And I'm going to say, when you first start coaching, you just need to coach. Whoever sits across from you, be present with them, sit with them, help them discover. And you'll figure out as you go through who your ideal client is. Honestly, what I tell people when they come to me, if you're looking for warm fuzzy, I'm probably not your person. But if you're looking for somebody who will sit across from you, who will ask you the hard questions, who will challenge you when you said that you wanted to do something and then it didn't happen, to discover what caused that, then I'm that person. But I think that right now, with the changes, with how companies are reshifting their monies since they've come back from pandemic, they are much more open to spend on coaching. And you can come in and you can help fill that gap. You can help their people grow in their leadership skills. I had a client this morning and we were talking, this is the time of year, as you know, all the reviews have come out, they're being given now, everything's being recalibrated, et cetera. And how do you have those conversations? How do you sit across from somebody and maybe share with them what caused them to not get an advancement? But then the bigger part is, how do you help them connect those dots on what they need to do in order to move forward? And that is where coaching comes in. So those are the things I want to share with you. It's a wide open field. Look at that. Look at the opportunities that are out there. Find an organization that you agree with their coaching staff. We're also finding a time which is very interesting. The Purist Coaching says that I sit across from you and I am present and I ask questions for that self-discovery. And definitely that is the purest form of coaching. But we're also seeing a bit of a movement out here across the board as well. The companies are asking not just for us to set and play 20 questions, as it were, but to really come. As I mentioned, people will pick me because of my background, because of my experience, and they want me to bring that to the table with them. Not for me to tell them what to do, not for me to dictate, but I do have that expertise where I can ask some questions, maybe along that line of, have you ever considered, or might I make an observation? This is something that might be of benefit. So it's much more even of that dance when you're looking at corporations now. They want you to come with your education, with your experience, with your training, and be willing to have that dance with their people to help them get to where they need to be. And I think I'm at my 30 minutes now. So what questions do you have for me?
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it. I think we have a wonderful perspective of how coaching can, well, what coaching is in general, but also how can it be used to help leaders address the current situation we're seeing in the corporate and organizational world. So let's open this up. As she said, if anybody has specific questions that you would like for Lisa to address, and Kelly, also feel free if you have any comment or any, we can just take advantage of this time.
Well, the question comes in, one thing that I get asked often, well, how much do you make? And people always want to know, what do coaches make? So here's what I think. If you are a coach that maybe you're helping with somebody to lose weight or to diet or something like that, you're going to have one price point. If you're working with a nonprofit, you probably have a different price point. If you're working with a corporation, that's a completely different price point as well. So that's the joy of being able to be self-employed, is I get to decide according to who's across from me what you can afford, because the benefit I bring will be the same regardless, but I want you to be able to pay it in a comfortable way. What I tell people, and what I've done in the past often, and you're a Christian university, is I really feel like God told me if I would take care of the people across from me, he'd take care of me. So when a person comes to me because they're a person of faith, I typically will tell them that here's what I charge, but I want you to go back and I want you to pray about it. And I want you to come back, and whatever number you tell me is what I will accept. But I also want them to do that prayer point. I don't want them to just give me a number. And then I also tell them, I want you to feel a little bit when you hand me that check or that credit card, because if there's no skin in the game, it's easy to not do the work. Yeah.
Wonderful. So great. Thanks, Lisa. We have a question here from Ray. It says, what size does a company need to be to have a full-time coach? That's a great question.
So here's the thing to look at. The companies that have full-time coaches inside usually are very, very large companies. My encouragement to you is you will get more doors open if you go in as contract. So all the companies that I mentioned, I don't work for any of them. I send them an invoice every month and I get a check. So that way I'm a contract labor for them. I'm a 1099. Because if you're looking for inside, it's going to be a larger type company. And most of them, that they are open to that, but I find most companies are more open now to bringing coaches in from the outside.
Wonderful. Yeah. So we have some more questions here. What degree do you need to start out with? I have an MBA, says Christina. So that's always a big question when people are interested in going into coaching, right? So whether they do actually need a degree.
So here's the thing to remember. When you go into coach, it's about being present with that person. My background is ministry. So I sit with all these people in all these companies, but my training is in the coaching. And most coaching schools don't require that you have any particular type degree. So it is finding that school that lines up with who you are and the type of coaching you would like to do. But most of them do not require a degree. I had a person reach out when I was the president of the local chapter here. A company was doing some layoffs and they were looking for several coaches to help with transition. And I couldn't get them to understand. He's like, I need these people that have a certain degree and we're going to pay very small amounts of money. I was like, but you don't understand. Because you have a degree doesn't make you a coach. You're a coach because you've gone through training to understand what that looks like. how to ask those questions, how to show up and try not to be biased, or to acknowledge your bias, and then to be able to move past that. So no specific degree, but I would encourage you to look for a school. You can go to the ICF website. It's called internationalcoachingfederation.org, and they will have a list. You can hit the one that says, I want to become a coach, and there'll be a drop down. They're going to ask you some questions, what language, what type of coaching, etc. Then it will give you an entire list of schools that are accredited through them. And so definitely, I would encourage you to look that way.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Lisa. We have another anonymous question here. It says, how do you determine if a coaching relationship will be a good match for both parties, coach and coachee?
So whenever I have, I call it a discovery call. So basically, number one, when people find me, they've already looked at my background. They've either found me online or through one of the places that I'm listed. So they know a little bit about me before we get started. And then it really is the person sitting across from me. I just started having a conversation, so tell me where you live, what's brought you to coaching, have you had a coach before, and just to really see if we're comfortable with each other. And then if we are, then it is a matter to move forward. The thing to remember as a coach, I am responsible for the time we're together as far as that journey. I'm responsible to show up, to be present, and to ask the good questions. I do not own what you do on the other side. I can't own your outcome. And in all honesty, I've had a couple clients during my time of coaching that I've fired because it was like, it's not fair to you to keep paying me money and to see you when you're not doing anything differently than before we started. So there are those times that you might have somebody that isn't the best fit or doesn't want to do the part that they have to do. And then we just honestly have to say, this isn't the best for us. But I have found that during that discovery, as we're having the conversation, if there is that chemistry, if there's that connection, then we're good to go.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks, Lisa. So I like the idea of, and all the information and the perspective you've provided in terms of someone exploring this coaching world as something they could become, and they could actually use it as a full-time coach or as a side coach. But I would love to see if we can comment a little bit more on the side of, there's a lot of people that are joining in today from different backgrounds that might not be thinking about being certified as coaches professionally, or they might want to do it, but just to use it in their current role. It's kind of like, and I'm drawn back to what actually brought me close to coaching 20 years ago. I just wanted to develop leadership skills. That's how I approached this. And I ended up finding a much wider world inside of coaching. But what recommendation, or what would be the benefit for someone that might be currently working with people, with leading people, and if they go into acquiring coaching skills, how would they be benefited, and how their leadership would be benefited by installing those skills? That would be kind of like the approach. I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing from you on that side.
So I want to say 4 years ago, maybe 5, the pandemic, my time's all confused now, but Youth for Christ, my goodness, International Coaching Federation actually decided to have what they call families. So they have the professional coaches, then they have different ones, team coaching. Well, one of those they came up with was coach-like skills, because they acknowledge that there are a lot of companies, and it takes a lot of time and money to be certified as a coach, but everybody does benefit. If I can learn how to sit across from you and not tell you what to do, but to actually help you discover the right thing to do, that's what coaching is about. And so often we get into that, we get to that consultant piece, that somebody will come across from us and I'm just going to tell you what to do. It's what managers do often. Their team comes in front of them and they tell them what to do. Well, that's only so far as the package goes. It's important to learn how to get the person that you're working with to truly understand. If I understand about this, now I have onus for it. So yes, there's so much benefit to use that, even in relationships, with children or stuff, to ask the questions. One of my favorite questions is, help me to understand, how did you come to that decision? Or help me to understand what it was about that was so important to you. Just a simple question like that will help you, because our go-to is we ask a teenager, so why did you do that? And most often the answer is, I don't know, because they don't know. I did the why a while ago. They can't justify it. But if I can learn to ask better questions, now I get better results. So even things like that, there are all sorts of books and things out there. I think there's one called 1001 Good Questions or something. I don't know. But then I also tell people that after you've done it for a while, the questions will just come to you. You know, you'll know what to ask. But yes, any of those kind of skills, you know, there are courses that are very short. There are more and more I'm seeing courses that are evergreen. So you can buy it and you can go on and you can do the studies and stuff at your pace. But if you can learn some of those things, it will benefit you every part of your life, not just at work.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Do you have any assessments that you do? You said that, you know, that you fired someone for not making progress. What touch points do you use to assess progress?
Well, so we have a coaching session today. And part of coaching is it's not just a conversation, it's actually with a cause. So when we leave today, you're going to tell me that between now and the next time we see each other, you're going to do these 3 or 4 things. Great. Maybe you're going to work on your calendar and you're going to block it out. Maybe you're going to, you know, walk for an hour or something. I don't know, but you'll tell me. But then when I come back the next time, I'm going to ask you, so how did that go? And you're going to tell me. And if you tell me 3 or 4 weeks in a row that you didn't do anything, and when you tell me this week that you didn't do anything, well, I'm going to start asking you, so what caused that? You know, what happened to prevent you? What might you do differently now? And so we'll work on it and we'll help you come up with ways that you can address it this week. But if the pattern is consistently, even after we're going through that one-on-one coaching and helping you discover, and you don't want to do that hard work, I can't change that. So it's not really an assessment on that one. It's much more of, are you trying? I mean, if you tell me you didn't do anything, but you tell me that you tried, okay, we're going to figure out what prevented. When you tried today, what came up? What caused you to not be able to move forward on it? I also tell people never use the word try. If I tell you I'm going to try to come to your party tonight, you're just going to mark me off the invitation list anyway, because I'm not going to show up. So when you tell me you're going to try to do this week, it's like, okay, no. Let's try to phrase that differently. What will you do this week?
That's right.
Like that.
Yeah. So wonderful. Thanks, Lisa. And you know, you began by saying that one of the biggest things is that the word coaching has been so misinterpreted, misused, and it could mean so many things to so many people, especially in the Christian arena. Some people have become a little allergic to that. How can we bring a word of, I would say, hope and usefulness into and I would say into the spiritual dimension of how this can be used in scopes of, like, let's say, ministries, churches, and how has it been your experience in introducing that, so that people understand that there's nothing wrong with this? It's just a tool that can be used even within spiritual environments.
And so even just starting out, like I did my little explanation, if I were a therapist or a counselor, we do this. If I were a mentor or a consultant, we do this. So just helping people understand, because you're right. So often we use the word coach, but the person came in, they weren't a coach. They were probably more of a consultant, meaning they were just telling you what to do. That's not coaching, but that's their experience. If they played a sport, that's what your soccer coach did. You know, he told you how to hit the ball differently. He told you all those things. So they're kind of expecting that. But sadly, as I mentioned, is we have people, so many people who have no training. When I meet a person, they tell me they're a coach, the first thing I ask them is, where did you get your training? And so often I have people that have no formal training at all. So it's helping them to see that we've heard that word, we've heard it often. This is what coaching really is. If we truly look at this, then we're going to be in a place that we're helping people. And even on that, I believe that I'm still doing ministry when I sit across from somebody and I'm coaching them, because the Holy Spirit is present. And I think those questions come from God. You know, for me asking you or just noticing, you know, I noticed that when I asked that question, you sat back in your chair. What just happened for you there? So it's very much being in that place. But sometimes what we have to do is we have to go in and we have to help them unlearn what they believe it to be, so we can help them learn what it actually is.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I've always also, when it comes to addressing the spiritual dimension of coaching, it's just like you're allowing people to respond to their calling in their lives. And so when you use questions and you want to raise awareness, you want to raise responsibility, you want to raise engagement in what they're doing and to help them be effective, it all comes in synchrony with the work of God in that person's lives and the work of the Holy Spirit in that person's lives. And so we're not taking out the work of the Spirit. We're just catalyzing the person's understanding of their own responsibility before God to pursue their God-given purpose, mission, or objectives in life. So yeah.
Well, in church, we sit there and we have the minister preaching to us. So this information is coming to us, and that's what we see every Sunday. But when we're coaching, we can't be doing that. It's about waiting. So when I send in my recordings from my MCC a while back, they have to be transcribed and timestamped. And so I was able to look and see. So in a 40-minute session, I think I spoke 5 minutes, and the rest of it was all the client.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it was quiet to give them space to really think about what was going on. But our natural in the world we live in is to do all the talking. And if there's silence, oh, we can't have that. You've been quiet for 5 seconds. Maybe I should say something different. So it is learning that. And that's that space where Holy Spirit shows up, is in that quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. And I don't want to miss Hugo's question, because it fits right in with this purpose and mission. That he had a question about, would you recommend coaching certification for someone seeking to become a project manager?
I don't know if you need to be certified or not, but I think you definitely need to have the training, because as a product manager, you are out there trying to get your team to be doing all this stuff, and you have so much interaction with the people. But if you can help them to do their job and you can trust them because you have those skills, definitely find some skills that will help you a lot.
Yeah. And Lissa, do you agree with this quote that I read some time ago that said that a mentor is someone who pours out their wisdom into other people, and a coach is someone who pours out from other people's their capacities, wisdom, and
that's exactly, that's it exactly. That's that dance. What are you hearing? What are you sensing? Tell me about that. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Lissa. I think we don't have any other questions coming in. I don't know if Kelly, is there anything else you wanted to mention, or yeah.
Well, the only other question that I'm curious, I have a lot of questions that I'm curious about with the field of coaching, but you had mentioned something that really resonated in me, and that is making the other person across from you feel valued. And I wondered what skill set, if you can describe it in skill sets. I love the explanation of the Holy Spirit and being quiet and allowing that process. But are there other human assets that can make coaching an effective space for the client and yourself?
So number one is you have to make sure that you are fully present. Don't try to coach when you have 20 different things going on. If you need to go in a room and close the door, if you need to be in the same space, but that's part of that. That I'm with you, and I'm fully locked in for our. That's the first thing. And then the other thing is giving them that space to talk. Like I said, the woman, 35 minutes with silence in her speaking, and my 5. Because if I can sit there and I can wait on you to come up with the answer, does that happen in everyday life? Usually not. Usually somebody will ask us a question. If we don't answer fast enough, they're going to ask us another one or whatever. And we can feel that all they want is the result of what they're looking for. But when I can be patient with you and let you discover and not have to rush to my next question, you feel valued and heard. But we live in a world right now that people don't have time to hear each other. Sometimes our client, the only time somebody truly listens to them is when they're in a coaching session.
Thank you. And that's sad, but yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. I wanted to close out with the ideas you shared. You shared about the need to be co-creative in the process. You need to be fully present, the need to be a good listener, the need to be skilled at asking questions and allowing people to speak instead of me pushing ideas. And that's one of the key things from a leadership perspective. And I really appreciate all the other things you've shared. And I think it's been a great honor and privilege, and people have taken a lot of great things from today's conversation. Thank you so much, Lisa, for accepting our invitation to be here. And we're really blessed to have you.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. So what I wanted to share briefly is with regards to what we do as a university. And, part of what we offer here at Mid-America Christian University is related to, who is organizing this is a School of Business Leadership. We have different programs, but specifically the ones that are represented by Dr. Kelly Resemy and myself. In my case, with the Master of Arts in Leadership, and at the same time with the MBA program. Both programs are thriving, have faculties that are engaged into not only somehow coaching students, and we want to enhance that dimension as we move forward, because that's part of what we have encountered through the process of learning, to be passionate. The sizes of classes here in the Masters in Leadership and the MBA are really, really interesting in terms of the small size per instructor, which allows them to nurture the conversation and further their understanding of things that are going through in the program. And both are designed to be transformative in essence, and also turn leaders into great ones into their own areas of emphasis, which is things like communication, business, ministry, higher education, public administration, and among other areas of emphasis that also are available. And we are willing to develop the skills that people may need to lead globally, to lead from a servant leadership perspective, and also to impact their own sphere of influence. And we, as an accredited school, are honored to have not only great faculty, but also have a great administrative system that supports all of this, the technology and everything, as we equip people. And we're really excited of what's going on right now in our school, and we're looking forward. If you're interested in knowing more, just make sure that you write us and connect with us. And there's more information on the website. And please make sure that if you have any other question after this finishes up, feel free to reach us out in our own space. And I don't know, Kelly, if you had any other comment as we close, and thank you so much for attending.
Yes, that's all I want to say is thank you all for coming. And just to remind you, the recording will be on our website at macu.edu/leadership-connection, and fill out that feedback. We would love to have your feedback, and that will actually be your entry into winning a special gift from our school. So next month, we have another webinar coming, so please register, and we're excited about the next one.
Yes, we have it right here, and we're going to have, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say we're excited about all of them, but once again, we're excited.
So we're going to have one that's going to be on the topic of policy governance, leading the nonprofit in a better way. We have the honor to have Dr. Randall Spence, who's Mid-America Christian University's chairman of the board of trustees, someone who has been an experienced and with a lot of experience in the both in the corporate and church environment. and he holds 2 doctoral degrees. But beyond that, he's a passionate, I would say, promoter of this topic of policy governance. Such an important topic for those of us who somehow connect with nonprofit organizations and how to lead from the board the future of organizations. So he's going to share about how to define and understand better what policy governance is all about, and also the difference between management and governance, and also how to prevent confusion on expectations in leading the nonprofit and result in greater focus on the mission. So this is something that I know it's going to be a great blessing, and it's going to be a great benefit for those who attend. And feel free to, from tomorrow should be the link there for you to register, and just pass it along to whoever you think would benefit from this. Well, thank you for being here, and looking forward to keeping up the connection, and see you next month.
Yes. Looking forward to seeing everyone again next month.
All right.